Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and it's great to be here.
Yeah,
Imogen?
it is.
It's very nice to be here, isn't it?
Yeah, nice to be
and,
here.
Imogen and I have sort of known each other for a while now, and it's funny actually. Herb mentioned when I first spoke here, which was about 10 years ago, and when I spoke here 10 years ago, I talked about how the music industry was destroying its own business model and was basically in flames. And what's happened in the last 10 years is that it's sort of recovered itself. Yeah. The kind of thinking around all of that has been, I think, a lot about discovering new ways of doing business and about new ways of combining being a musician and actually being a business person. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I think it might just be worth, some of you may already know all the work that Imogen's done, but I thought it might be just worth running through a few things, partly because it would just be embarrassing for Imogen if I recite all these things. So she actually went to the Brit School, which was a music industry performing arts school, and a long time ago I was involved in setting that up, weirdly.
Thank you.
But you actually used it, which is much, much more fruitful. Then there was a band called Frou Frou, and then Imogen recorded an album in 2009 called Ellipse, which went to the charts in the States, and as a result you got 2 Grammys, which is pretty amazing. And then 2010, it was pretty amazing, we were very excited. In 2010, the British Music Academy awarded you an Ivor Novello Award for International Achievement. And then, actually this is a quirky one, isn't it? Because not many people know about you and Taylor Swift, do they?
No.
No. But Imogen actually did a lot of production work with Taylor Swift and actually won another Grammy for her work on Taylor Swift's album, 1989.
That's right.
Which was, I think, quite surprising to me anyway, to discover that. And then most recently, and again, kind of awesomely, I think, was the work that you did on the most recent Harry Potter production, which was the West End play. So all the music for Harry Potter and the Cursed Child was your work. And this is the beginnings of what it is to be a Renaissance woman and a Renaissance musician in this day and age. But the thing that's extraordinary is that on top of all of that, and continuing to, oh, and by the way, just as a minor matter of becoming a mother and having a baby and doing all those things as well, and writing music about that, you have also been tackling the challenges of what it is to actually be a musician and to be an independent musician in all of this. And so there have been a few other things you've done in between, since like some technology and some industry initiatives.
Yeah.
So where should we start with all of those things? We last met each other, well, we met each other a few times, but the most recent time was really in conjunction with blockchain, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So what was it about blockchain that got you excited?
Yeah. Well, so yeah, it's been 20 years in the music industry, and everything started off pretty simple. Hello, Author with baby, hello. Yeah, so it started off pretty simple. I'd make a record. I was 18, released it, got out into the shops physically, kind of knew where your stuff was. You'd sell a few records, hopefully, you'd go and tour. You knew where your fan base was. As much as you would be able to garner any information about whether your record company was telling you what you wanted, or any data or information about how that record was really doing, and the kind of the clarity and the transparency of the royalty statements, for example, debatable. But then over the years, it's just through the digital movement of music, and pretty much music being on tap. A lot of people talk about the golden age for music, for listeners, but we haven't yet achieved the golden age for the creatives, because there's this very big gap between when you release a piece of music, you're the first to put in the risk as the creative, and the last, if at all, to receive anything back from it. There's lots of people around in between different services, and people who put your music into film and TV, and that brings in money. But in terms of the kind of return and the amount of people involved in finding that return and gathering that, whether it's on a radio station or whether it's been downloaded or played on YouTube or Spotify or whatever. So blockchain. I got excited about blockchain because I realized that all of these kind of fragmented bodies in the music industry, there are many different organizations, none of them are are very well interconnected. In fact, they're not interconnected. We don't have, for instance, a database of songs, a public open database of songs. We don't have definitive identities of songs and the musicians and the creatives, and you can't even find out who owns a song sometimes, and people can waste up to 3 weeks of their life trying to find out how to get permission to use a song in a film, and so sometimes they don't bother, or they go for the easy choice, or they just use it illegally. So
in a way, what you're saying is that although the story of the music industry is that things are improving and things got a lot better, they haven't necessarily got better for the creators and for songwriters and composers and performers, that there's still a challenge, and that maybe technology might have some beginnings of some answers. Is that where it's going?
So I feel, so has anyone heard of blockchain in the room? Yay, good.
Okay.
So if I'd asked that question a year ago, nobody, or very few people might have put their hands up, or maybe 2 years ago. But 2 years ago, I heard about blockchain. And my dear friend Zoe Keating, who was mentioning that she was off to Necker Island to go and do the blockchain summit as a performer, and kind of learned a bit about what blockchain was. So blockchain is a technology that underpins Bitcoin, but also many other cryptocurrencies now. And the exciting thing about what I heard was these things called smart contracts, which are programmable contracts, programmable transactions, that in it you could say, when I buy this thing from this person, this direct person, say it's a song, and you buy that song. All the people that are involved in the making of that song, whether you're an engineer, producer, musician, singer, the songwriter, whatever, you receive money. You could receive money instantaneously because the smart contract would fire out the action to send all this money to individual cryptocurrency wallets. What it does is kind of decentralizing the music industry. It's bringing back the data and the transaction, connecting you directly to your fan base. And even though the curation and the finding of that music can happen through the services, but the actual connection of that, what you can do with that song can be directly done with the fan.
So it's very, very different from the way that the current system of administering music and managing the flow of monies through the industry is today, isn't it? I mean, currently you have to be a member of a collecting society, and how long does it take you to actually get paid? And do you know what you're getting paid for? I mean,
in the UK it's pretty good. You've got PRS and PPL for mechanical, for the recording, and then the PRS for the song, and it's pretty good. If it's kind of local, like national, then it might be a few months. But if it's, or PPL is like every year actually, so you receive a yearly payment. But if it's international, it can be up to 2 to 3 or 4 years sometimes, because of the other collection societies and how data is returned back to, or like a radio station. How do they show what they've played on that radio station? There's very little standards.
So it's very opaque at the moment.
Very opaque.
And blockchain has this ability, potentially, to be more transparent and be more immediate.
Yeah, it's certainly like, at this precise moment, people are developing the technology, people are building businesses using it, thinking completely differently about how their organizations run, inter-organizational activities. Banks, I think like 40% of banks are going to be using blockchain in some form in the next kind of, well, they already are, at least investing in the ideas of it. So it's a really exciting point to get in there as a creative and go, a vision of a future music industry would be to be able to put out a song, and with that song have all of its data intact, any licensing information you might want to know, all the musician's information, tempo, the tagging of that song, whatever you might want, location, geolocation data, to be able to share that as a kind of network of data, and then to build services upon that, kind of unleashing whole new emergent services that currently can't exist because there's no database to grow from. So I'm excited as a musician to just share this idea and to help anyone building those services to think how.
So when we met, I suppose it was about 2 years ago, and this was first happening, and I wasn't at the Digital Catapult then, but about a year ago I did join, and we've started sort of doing some work around that, and I suggested maybe you should come and hang out at the Catapult, and as a result of that, there's some more stuff happening, isn't there? Where are we with that now?
Yeah. So
you've got this idea about MyCelia.
Yes. So I call it MyCelia. It's really a metaphor for how I feel the music industry should work, which is more like an organism, a healthy, sustainable place for music to exist in and the creatives to work in, and to have that feedback data a lot healthier, to be able to put that energy back into better decisions for entrepreneurs and musicians, creatives, artists. But I think in the last 2 years that there are a few people developing things. There's a company called Jack. There's another initiative in the States called .bc, .blockchain. There's whole people kind of exploring this now. But I feel like the thing which is actually missing, which is what I'm excited to move into, which I'm going to speak about at this event later on a bit as well, they're called creatives' passports. This idea that a creative can have a passport, a place, a unique identity, a number, which connects to all the other organizations that work on behalf of you, so that people can find you easier, people can see your skill sets, we can find partnerships better with brands or festival people building a festival, we can share our passions, to find brands to help us get those jobs which kind of keep me going, which is the working with Sennheiser or working with Dolby or writing a song with Goldsmith University.
It is amazing, isn't it? Because we haven't had time, because there's so many different pieces of what you've done that all fit together around this, that it's an incredibly wide-ranging and all-encompassing vision that you've got, because you've also been developing new technology to actually perform with and play the music, which if we're very lucky we might get a chance to hear in a few minutes. But in a way, it all fits together in terms of an overall kind of idea about both the technology and the ideas today being so much more about collaboration and transparency and a sort of a sense of understanding where everyone's coming from and being able to work together so much more easily. And you seem to be just wanting to take that further and further forward. Why is that? What's going on there?
Well, I don't know, maybe my parents split up when I was 12. I'm trying to get everything back together. I don't know, I just like connectivity, bringing things together. It's also about just simplifying my life, my flow, my daily flow. I have one hat, which is the kind of MyCelia idea and doing projects. One of the projects is called The Life of a Song. I want to express the complexities of the music industry in a visual form, with all the data and the whole lifespan of this song for 12 years, and how it's interacted and who it's interacted with, and the data streams and the money flow and how it actually happens, so that to explain to myself and to the music industry and to the beyond, the government, where are the problems and how can we alleviate that and where can we develop technology. So through the life of a song, this song called Hide and Seek, how can we really show actually what's happening, rather than just talk about problems of transparency or data feedback problems or whatever. How can we actually show it? So it's more about how can I do creative projects and write songs about them. I wrote a song called Tiny Human, which ended up being the first song to ever use smart contracts, and so we pay the musicians directly into their cryptocurrency wallets using Ether. And it's just using music as an excuse to do projects, and at the same time, occasionally write a song.
But when you've done these things, because you've had an incredible kind of response to the ideas that you've been putting out, and all sorts of people have come into your world and wanted to kind of make contact with you around some of this. Have you found that there's a sort of division for you between the creative work and all these the business ideas and the technology ideas, or do they somehow or other all have a sort of seamless connection in your mind, even if we can't always see it?
Well, that's actually part of the reason of this tour. So I'm going on a tour, hopefully. Well, actually today marks the year countdown for when I want to go on tour, because I've been talking about this damn tour for about 3 years. I had a baby, she's 2.5 now, and I just kind of need to figure it out. I feel like I've done 20 years of up until the age of 20, I was all about family and friends and fun and hobbies and all that. And then for 20 years, I'm now going to be 40 this year. I've been really, really work-focused. But Scout, my little girl, it's this tug of the mother, the creative, the entrepreneur or the business person ahead of me. And so I want to go on tour now for a year. I want to do a slow tour, a week a city, and I want to bring all of these different elements. And I want to connect with local communities. I want to, the local carpenter to build the stage set. I want us to, bring on local orchestras and local musicians and bring local knowledge and share technology and maybe build parts of this ecosystem. Because I'm aware of a lot of amazing technology out there, and I just see there's these little spots, little gaps, and I think in my whole life it's all about where there's a little space like these gloves. I felt there was a disconnect between giving a performance and having to interact with my laptop. And I feel like I was doing my emails for some of the really creative things, like, adding a big reverb to my voice or something, which would just look like a mouse control or a fader control. So just seeing a little gap and going, oh, maybe I could do something in that. And then, along with a team of people, we developed over 7 years these gloves, the Mimu gloves they're called. And it initially just started out as a passion project, but now we're trying to get them out to other people. So that's part of the tour as well, is how can we take these gloves and by next year have them in a state of manufacture and be able to share the amazing software that the guys at the team have developed. And at the same time build these creative passports for musicians around the world to help them connect to all the different organisations that represent their music easier, and create and be the solution, really. I think there's artists for the longest time have been like, oh, just stay away from the artist, talk to the manager. And I think artists are having to think on our feet, and we can do many things. We're doing blogging, or we're kind of making bits of technology, or whatever it might be. And I think it's just trying to enable a bit more of that. So
you are extraordinary in all of this, though, because there are lots of artists who are still very content and very preoccupied simply with the music piece on it, and that's enough in itself. And yet you're constantly breaking down the barriers and constantly expanding into new areas, and that is pretty unusual and kind of amazing.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Absolute privilege.
Yeah.
Imogen, ladies and gentlemen, Imogen Heap.